success. Pull off the track, let your team go to work.
Outside, clear.
Change all 4 tires, fill the fuel cell, and make needed adjustments, all in 8 seconds or less.
Ladies and gentlemen, race fans of all ages, this is the Pits Are Open. Your host, Will Marotti. Good to be with you today. And whether you're listening on the podcast, we're grateful for that, or you're watching video, we're on a new channel today. So, of course, we're always on Spotify with podcasts, other channels as well. But we go to Spotify a lot. And we're also on Facebook with our team page, Marotti Autosport, and the Spirit of Speedway, which I'll talk about in a second. And we are on YouTube with The Pits Are Open. And for the first time ever, we are on TikTok with The Pits Are Open. So we're excited if you're watching us on TikTok today. And no matter what platform, what channel you're watching or listening to, please like, comment, share, and especially on YouTube, please, if you haven't already, subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of that family so that we can get stuff to you immediately. Got a great show. This might be the best show yet. I mean, I know we're early into it. This is show 3, but we've got 2 great guests lined up for you today. It's going to be fabulous. I want to say a special word of thanks to our sponsors. Our presenting sponsor, Speed Sport. Speed Sport's been around since 1934, called the Bible of motorsports, the Bible of racing. And they cover all forms of motorsports, including hydroplane, unlimited boat racing, off-road. Next week, the Mint 400, they'll be broadcasting that live. Trans Am racing, they cover all of it. And we're so glad that they have chosen to be our presenting sponsor. We use them exclusively for our newsletter content with their permission, and also we'll have a lot of video content that we'll be able to share from Speed Sport. They have so many vertical digital platforms, and their channel on on smart TVs, all the fast channels, Roku, Amazon Freevee, Pluto, Fubi, all those channels, Speed Sport 1 is the channel. And then a new announcement for a sponsor, a dear friend, Redline Ace Graphics in Indianapolis, actually in Speedway, Indiana. Ben Porter is the founder of that. He's worked with NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, other forms of graphic needs as well beyond motorsports. And we're so happy to have Redline Ace on as a sponsor of the program as well. I also want to bring something up that I haven't talked about since we started the show, but it's something I'm very proud of. This is a book that Marotti Autosport released in late 2023. It's called The Spirit of Speedway. It was my idea. I'm the creator of the concept, the theme, but good friend Mark Dill, who was a prolific author, wrote the book for us. It's written at a 3rd grade level. Not that Mark has to write it at 3rd grade level, but it's written at a 3rd grade level intentionally so that, the funny thing about reading is reading experts will tell you that from kindergarten or preschool to 2nd grade, kids are learning to read. From 3rd grade and beyond, they are reading to learn. So it's incredibly important for kids to be able to master basic reading skills by 3rd grade, or it's going to really be a struggle for them for the rest of their academic career. This is written at a 3rd grade level, and it's so well written, again, by Mark Dill. Great illustrations by Mary Lynn Smith. I want to just give you a little peek at the inside of the book. Spirit of Speed. I've been told this is the greatest children's book ever written about IndyCar racing. And this opens up, and here's our hero, Speedway. He's a little car. He was a racer born in Speedway, Indiana, oddly enough. Of course, that's the home of the world's greatest racetrack and the greatest race, the Indy 500. No one should be surprised that Speedway dreamed of winning the big race. Of course, that's a Borg Warner trophy he's dreaming about, thinking about. And we've loaded the book with did you know facts about the 500, about the cars, about the drivers. It's a great story. I won't spoiler alert or anything, let you know, but this is available on Amazon. I want to encourage you to get the hard copy because it's more durable. Amazon, you can get it, and it's also available soft copy. This is a great way, and I'll tell you the main reason we published this book, and I thought of the book. The main reason of this is to get little kids, because I fell in love with IndyCar when I was a young child, get little kids to fall in love with IndyCar racing, and particularly the Indy 500. That's the purpose of the book. But beyond that, I was very surprised. One of our investors, Kevin Gara, works with the United Way of Central Indiana, and they have a reading mentorship program called Read Up. Kevin shared this idea with the folks at the United Way. They took about 350 of these books last year, put them into Indianapolis schools, second and third grade, and used this with their mentors as a reading assist tool for the kids in Indianapolis public schools. So proud of that. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin and Penny, thank you so much for spearheading that for us. So it's a great book, and I would encourage you, and I guess it's great too for parents. Your kids are younger, maybe in first grade or kindergarten. This is a great time to spend with your kids, going through and reading the book about Speedway and all of it. And there's some great lessons about anti-bullying in there, finding friends, finding mentors that will help you along the way. It's a great opportunity. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, get the book, Spirit of Speedway, Amazon.com. Whew. We've got a lot going on, and I'll tell you, it's an exciting time because, we're getting ready to finish the off-season of IndyCar racing. And the off-season IndyCar racing is about 5 months long, and this weekend, Sunday, will be the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, and it's the launch of the 2025 NTT IndyCar season. We're so excited about it. Been waiting so long for this. I was in Indianapolis this past weekend, and I got to tell you, I love it. I shared this with a couple of folks. As I was flying into Indianapolis, I actually got giddy about it. I could tell I was getting close to Indianapolis. And a lot of times you can see the track flying in. I didn't on this path, but everything was snow covered as it was flying in. But had some great meetings and spent some time with vintage car racing associations. And Lime Rock, our own Lime Rock in Connecticut, was represented there with their historic foundation. So it was really a great time. But I went to the track, and I'm telling you, I get goosebumps still all these years. Going to that place, and I get goosebumps as I drive onto the property. And the museum's getting ready to reopen. The Indianapolis Museum's been closed since last November. It's going to open April 2nd to the public. So it's an exciting time. It's a good time. It's a fun time. And if you like motorsports, well, whatever you like, we're just about there with everything. I mean, Formula One's going to kick off soon. NASCAR's already going. Trans Am's going. And, of course, IndyCar starting this weekend. So we've all been waiting. We've all been wanting to get the green flag dropped, and here it comes. But let me tell you a little bit about the show today. We're going to continue our series aimed toward, focused on younger drivers and smaller teams looking to acquire sponsorship. We've got a great guest today. He is the real deal. He is a prolific sponsor, seeker, finder, acquisition specialist. His name is J.P. Murray. He's working with 3 drivers right now: Santino Ferrucci, our own Connecticut, Brady Bacon, USAC fame, and Taylor Reimer, who's driving in ARCA right now. And so JP is going to be on and tell us about the process of finding sponsorship and the process that he uses. Very generous about that. And in just a few moments, we're going to also have a preview of St. Pete with someone who I've just gotten to know the last few years and really appreciate him a lot. He is the IndyCar reporter for the Indianapolis Star newspaper. And he's going to give us his thoughts on the season, some other things we'll ask him as well. And I want to encourage you to go to our website, which is thepitsareopen.com. 2 things. First of all, sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter comes out every Tuesday morning. Got a lot of stories, motorsports stories there. Going to give you a preview of the upcoming show. So you can sign up for that. When you go to the homepage of the newsletter, right across the top, you just click on sign up for newsletter. Goes right into our constant contact, gives you that information. And then, and all we want is your name and your email. That's all we're looking for. And then also on our website, thepitsareopen.com, there's a little blue microphone button at the bottom corner of the screen. If you click on that microphone icon, you'll be able to leave a voice message to us. And if you do that during the show, if we're able to, I don't know if we're not probably ready for that today, but we we can even play it. We can play the audio, but we'll certainly respond to whatever questions or comments you have on the next program. So website, thepitsareopen.com. Go on, click on, sign up for the newsletter. Make sure you start getting our newsletter every Tuesday. And then if you'd like to leave a review, you could do that. If you'd like to learn more about the show, you can do that. If you'd like to leave a voice message, just click on the microphone, and it's pretty amazing. The technology is really crazy now. What you're able to do. I also want to say welcome to our producer. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alex Smith. Alex, we need some crowd like applause noise. So we
could get that.
we need that. Right? How you doing, Alex?
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm excited for the F1 season to start.
Well, I'm glad you are. I could care less.
They're starting testing this week.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, listen, it's I like racing, whether it's F1 or dirt track or quarter midget. Well, I mean, that's where my dad first started. That's where I fell in love with racing. My dad started taking me to the Silver City quarter midget track in Meriden, Connecticut. By the way, the same track that young Joey Logano cut his teeth on before he was a multiple-time NASCAR champion, Daytona 500 winner. And so it doesn't matter. I like anything that races. I like drag racing. I do like hydroplane, unlimited hydroplane racing. I like all of it. But my heart is in Indianapolis. That's where I first fell in love with the season, and so it's wonderful. But as I promised a few minutes earlier, we've got a great guest. He is the IndyCar reporter for the Indianapolis Star, and I have to say he's really been very kind. He returns my calls, my texts. He's written a couple times about our team. He's always been fair and gracious with his writings. So we want to welcome, for the first time, Indianapolis Star reporter Nathan Brown. Hey, Nathan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Will? Thanks for having me.
I love technology. We can just put this together. Are you still in Indianapolis, I'm guessing? Yeah.
I am for about 12 more hours. I've got a 5:45 a.m. flight out of Indianapolis tomorrow to head down to Tampa and St. Pete, but excited
of course,
to get there.
You have a family that you're developing, and so there's
Mhm.
always those responsibilities with that. You also have your own podcast. Indy Star appears on the Indy Star YouTube channel, The Inside Line with Nathan Brown. How often do you do that, Nathan?
Yeah, so that's a podcast that that platform actually launched before I joined the Star. My predecessor, Jim Aiello, I think started that in 2019, and I picked it up when I started the beat in late 2019, early 2020, and it's evolved a handful of times. It kind of relaunched it a little bit this year with new name, new branding. I've got a new co-host, Joey Barnes, who's been on the IndyCar beat for more than a decade, and we put out our first couple episodes this week, and we'll be recapping every race. So we'll have, I would say, probably 20 or so episodes, if not more, if news requires it during the season. But we're excited to kick that off here this week.
And so the beauty of this medium, we realize, you can watch it anytime on YouTube. You don't have to just catch it live, although I think there's a quality to live. And then, of course, you podcast the audio, right? So you're on Spotify and all the other platforms as well.
Correct.
So, and again, the Inside Line is the name of the podcast. I wanted to talk to you about a couple things. Obviously, I want to do a St. Pete preview, which I know you do with Joey. So we've got a little bit of material to cover there. But I think the IndyCar world was very surprised, and many people disappointed because he's such a popular driver. Connor Daly was bringing this Polkadot group. I guess it's a crypto company, and then we found out remarkably that whatever sponsorship was promised was pulled back. So what have you heard about that? And I mean, I know he's going to be with Uncos at St. Pete, but what else have you heard about the status of Connor Daly and his ride that everybody thought was full season and now is maybe up in the air a little bit?
So I guess the best way to describe Connor's situation first, he signed a deal with Juncos Haulinger Racing in the off season to be a full-time driver for them in 2025. I won't pretend to know if that contract goes beyond this year. Most driver contracts probably have some sorts of options that the team can tack on if they so wish. But for all intents and purposes, this is a 1-year deal, but full season. The way most or I guess I won't say most, the way your probably non-championship contender driver contracts, or at least most of them that are full season work, from my understanding, typically is that, a team ultimately has the decision on when they can put the driver in the car or not. But they ultimately would be required to pay Connor out whatever his salary is on that deal, as long as he didn't fail to follow through on any ends of his contract. I know folks at JHR have given some quotes out this week that have essentially said this sponsorship was not, or the contract was not contingent on landing the sponsorship. They obviously signed the deal before this sponsorship would have been guaranteed or not. The way that Polka Dot deal worked is essentially folks in that Polka Dot community that own some sort of a stake in the company get to vote on what the company does, and their votes are weighted on kind of like a publicly traded company. Basically, their votes are weighted on how much large or small of a stake they own, and so that was looking like it was trending in the right direction. I think there was a 28-day voting window, and with a week or so to go, Connor was still above the 50% benchmark he was going to have to be at. That suddenly dropped with a couple folks voting nay who held a pretty sizable stake, and that fell below the 50% mark. And all of a sudden, the $3.5 million that Connor believed for a long time he was going to be able to bring to JHR is now suddenly not there, and the team and Connor will be looking to try and fill that hole. But he does bring some sponsorship, I've been told. At minimum, I believe he brings enough money to get through the 500, and then once we get past that, it's essentially up to the team to decide, do we want to honor this deal and keep Connor in the car? Does he give us the best chance to compete at a high level? Do we have funding that we can pull from elsewhere to try and fill that gap? Brad Hollinger, recently new co-owner to that team, obviously comes with a pretty sizable wallet and has brought a lot of investments to help get that team off the ground again. But I could certainly understand that he doesn't want to necessarily be an open checkbook for this team to continue on. There's also not
last week they announced they were nixing their next program, their former Indy Lights program. And I don't know this. I've not spoken to Brad Hollinger, but I've heard several people, other commentators say, and I've heard this from other people in the business, that everybody has a limit. I remember talking to Dale Coyne years ago about, and he crashed, he lost 2 cars in one race. And I said, that must barely be bad on a budget. He goes, yeah, I'm tired of writing checks. So even if you can backstop, it doesn't mean you want to write the checks. And apparently Brad is, he's put a significant financial commitment into this. And I think at the end of the day, he's tired of writing checks.
Yeah,
so they're
exactly.
They're going to have to bring out some sponsorship. All right.
Yep.
Also shocking last week, maybe the most shocking news last week, the dismissal of Jay Fry. Doug Bowles, track president, now made Track Series, and I said last week, listen, I think Doug Bowles is the best promoter in the whole building, so I don't have any problem with that. I just felt badly the way it was handled. I felt badly the way it was communicated, and I felt like Jay Fry did a great job, and he was kind of disrespected on his way out the door. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that was the way I would characterize it, from what and I think a lot of people on the media side in the series understand, was just an increasingly contentious relationship between Jay and those above him at Penske Entertainment, those being Mark Miles, Roger Penske, the other folks beside Roger at Penske Corp. Having spoken to a handful of team owners in the paddock in the hours and day or two after the news of Jay's dismissal was announced, Jay was a really trusted, well-respected kind of intermediary in the paddock between even though he worked for Penske Entertainment, a lot of teams saw him as kind of the go-between between the teams and the formal entity of Penske Entertainment, Mark Miles, Roger, etc., who would not necessarily always advocate for the teams, but who was someone who really understood where the teams were coming from when we're talking about plans for a new car or schedules for a race weekend. how to roll out the hybrid, things like that really affect not only the team's bottom line, but just the way in which they go about doing business. And Jay was pretty straight shooter, had been in this sport for more than a decade and had built a lot of great relationships. And it does seem like there was maybe an exchange over the last couple weeks in terms of talk about the plans for the new car that just finally kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back in that relationship, and they felt like they needed to go a different direction. There had been rumors dating back to the end of last season that this could be coming, but
Sure.
but it clearly never reached the level that Penske Entertainment felt like they needed to make this move. Obviously, you wouldn't choose to fire your series president less than a month before the series started. So this was something that they felt like they couldn't go into the season with this still looming. It's been pointed out by some that it's a shame that Jay essentially put all of the pieces in place for this season, with revising the rule book, holding meetings with drivers, team owners, team managers, making a lot of the plans that he was charged with to get this season all set and ready to go, and then was kind of had the rug pulled out from under him at the last minute. So a shame for him. At the same time, I agree, Doug, if you were going to make this move, I feel like there's no one better, especially on a short timeline to pull in than Doug. But we will see how he is able to handle essentially two very demanding full-time jobs as we get closer to May.
Well, I know they made some additional staff changes as well. I'm wondering how Doug's going to handle it, because Doug's always been like a fan favorite, because it's easy to be the president of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's like being the president of Candyland, right? But now being the president of Series, he may get some negativity from fans occasionally. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles it. One other question, then we'll spend a few minutes on preview of St. Pete. To your point, I heard also that there was a lot of tension between the car. I think Jay was really an advocate for the owners, realizing probably half the teams are always on the edge financially, and that bringing a new car out, drastically changed car, would be a huge financial commitment. And then we hear the other day that now they're saying, well, it's probably not going to be 27, it's going to be 28. Have you heard about the delay on the car, and why were they saying 27, and now it's more likely than not 28? Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything definitive, but I've heard for a couple months now that it was trending towards 2028. Again, I don't think there have been any statements that have confirmed that is definitely the plan. But to be blunt, I mean, that kind of just goes with the way in which a lot of things have taken place in the series over the years, post-COVID. Obviously, there are delays in manufacturing. Things are more expensive. Processes like these just take more time. We saw that perfect example with the 4 or 5 times that the hybrid was delayed here since it was announced in 2019. I believe before the pandemic that was supposed to roll out in 22. It was pretty quickly pushed back to 2023 once we were in 2020. And then it was 2024, and then the format changed, and then it even got into mid-season 2024 as testing took more time than expected. It's just I don't have a great sense of how much of this is true delays in the process. I don't know if it is just frankly been a project that those involved who have given those hints at a 2027 rollout maybe just underestimated. I mean, you have to consider the fact that IndyCar hasn't had a full-on new car since 2012. I know the powers that be like to say that this is not the same car that competed in the 2012 season, and they are correct. There have been a lot of safety advancements, and there's probably not too many pieces outside of the tub that were still used back when the DW12 was first rolled out. But in its core, this is still that car. And so, you wonder if this is a bigger project that takes longer to refine and get where you want it to be, even before you have a car out on track doing the required testing than folks might have thought at the start. If I were to put money on it, I'm gonna say it's probably not until 2028, and I think that could have a lot of implications down the line on where the series is in 3 years or so.
I agree. And I think too, I mean, I've been a fan before I was directly involved in any of this stuff. I think a new car would be great. But I think there's more of a risk with the car of getting it wrong than getting it right. We've seen some graphic, possible, this might look like this. And some of these things this is like Jetson stuff we're looking at. And I think some of the fans would be more upset with a poor design new car than they would be happy about a good design new car.
Agreed. I think that's fair to say. It's a tough spot because there's nothing inherently incredibly wrong with this car and the way it races right now. It is a little too heavy. I think
you added an aero screen with it. Now you added a hybrid kit. I mean, you've added hundreds of pounds of weight to the car. So
it is. It's not raced, I think, as well as series folks would probably like to say in recent years. It has had some good races, but the weight implication has certainly hindered the excitement level at some certain types of tracks, just with the way the tire compounds have been and the track surfaces, what have you. I think in a best case scenario, you have a brand new car, because I think there's a lot that can be done with activating around the fact that you have a brand new look. A car could be significantly lighter, but you put your teams in a place where other costs have been rising between personnel, the fact that they've had to install this hybrid unit that may be completely different once we get to this new car in 2027, 2028, and they might only use it for a couple of years. And now you're adding, one team owner said, I want to say about $6 or $7 million to outfit a 2-car team with the required spares that you would want to have on hand, things like that. So it's at a time where expenses have gone up probably 30% in the last couple of years, you are adding another 30 to 40% on top of that in a single year, if you can't find a way to kind of space out those expenses. If Penske Entertainment would be able to do that for the teams, I'm not sure.
Nathan, we only got a couple minutes left. It doesn't leave much time. What are you looking for this weekend? Any a lot of new drivers and teams. We got Prema on the scene now, and they're a big dog for sure. What are you expecting? Any surprises? Any younger guys that might step up and really Callum Ilott? I think a lot of people have a lot of expectation for Callum. He's done well in the past. He's got a great team behind him now. So what do you think? What are you looking at for this weekend?
Excited to see where Prema stacks up. I think if those cars are qualifying inside, say, the top 20 on Saturday, I think that's a magnificent accomplishment for that team. This is a track that Will Power has had incredible pace at over the years with, I think he's the only driver to have more than one pole at this track, which is kind of incredible. He's someone who's in a contract year with Team Penske, and a win here would do wonders for his future, I think. I also look for guys in new situations like Christian Lundgaard, who's in his first year with Arrow McLaren, and really interested to see how he stacks up with Pato O'Ward, if he can be really one of the first teammates that Pato has had to truly push him. Seeing how those two guys stack up here in their first race together as teammates would be great. This is also a track that Chip Ganassi Racing, outside of Marcus Ericsson's win in 2023, has not always been a track that they have really excelled at. Scott Dixon has never won here. Alex Palou has never won here. Those guys we know are always good for a couple wins in the season, but if they could open up the year with a win, I think that gives them all the better chances to add a 5th title in 6 years for that team.
I think there have been 5 drivers who have won St. Pete and gone on to win a championship, and Will Power is one of them. So I love Will Power. So it's going to be, I think I'm really looking forward, and I'm hoping, I hope I'm not wrong, but I'm hoping Alexander Rossi is really going to come into his own this year. It would be good for Alexander, be good for Carpenter. I'd love to see a great year for Ed Carpenter Racing and particularly Alexander Rossi. So We'll see. Hey, listen, you're leaving at 5:00 in the morning, so go to bed early. Thank you so much. Can't say how much I appreciate you having on, and hopefully we'll get you back on again before the season's over. So
Sounds
thank
great.
you so much. Nathan Brown, everybody, Indy Star. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to take a break. About 3 minutes. We'll be right back.
On Speed Sport 1. If you missed the opening race for the Trans Am Championship presented by Pirelli at Sebring International Raceway, catch an encore this Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Also this week, we've got new episodes of Prime Cuts. As the Repco Supercars prepare for another exciting season, we'll take you back to last year's Bathurst 1000 on Sunday afternoon at 4:30 Eastern. It's all on Speed Sport 1, the live racing network. Go to speedsport1.com for details and viewing options.
Welcome back. Very exciting to have our next guest. I got to say, I've only met him recently, and I don't even say met him. I've only talked to him and communicated him recently. And I got to tell you, he's going to be a superstar when it comes to sponsorship. He is really figuring this thing out. He's got a long career, decades-long career of working with trade associations, sponsorship, raising money with trade associations, mostly in the Washington, D.C. area. And then in 2021, he built this fabulous company. It was acquired. And then he decides to go in the racing sponsorship, which is, I want to ask him why. But he's been so helpful, and he's so generous with sharing his knowledge and process. He is already a big deal and a well-known name in the sport. He's going to be a superstar. I want to welcome to the first time of the program, JP Murray. JP, welcome.
Hello, Bill. Good to be with
How are
you.
you? How's it going?
Will, it's great to be on your show, and congratulations for launching it. Man,
Thank
so
you.
excited to learn from Nathan and Alex and the other guests that you have. I'm delighted to be with you.
I got to tell you, I have been, as you know, I've been just absolutely delighted to get to know you. You are so generous with sharing knowledge and information, and it's been a super pleasure. I can't wait to meet you in person soon. So it's gonna be good for that. Why did you choose motorsports? I mean, that's such a differently, in terms of industry, such a different spin than what you've done for decades. Why motorsports?
Yeah, well, I think some of it had to do with my passion for motorsports. I enjoyed listening to the Indy 500 on the radio when I was a kid growing up in Oklahoma. And fast forward, my career in Washington, D.C. was around associations and vertical business groups like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And while I was doing that, I got a call from Jimmy Vasser through a common contact. And Jimmy and Sully Sullivan were launching their number 18 Dale Coyne with Vasser Sullivan Racing team. And they asked me to become involved as a small associate sponsor. So at that point, I launched my own company and I became involved as a sponsor of a race team. And it gave me kind of a unique perspective of being a marketer and a business development person and leveraging motorsports for my company's brand. And that's really what catapulted it. And I sold the company about 3 years ago. So I needed a new chapter, Will. And I found that right then I leveraged my motorsports experience that I had as a sponsor and said, man, I think I can help these companies use this platform a little bit better. And then at the same time, I was at the track enough that I learned that with few exceptions, that most teams needed resources and they needed money and they needed new partnerships. So I hope that the coming together of those two things would help me find new clients and new sponsors for my drivers and teams that I worked with.
Sure.
So that's kind of how I got started into it.
So, this series that we're doing right now is focused on younger drivers, smaller teams. And I know even myself up until recently, I think for a lot of folks in motorsports not understanding the sponsorship dynamic, it's kind of a hit or miss, inconsistent.
Yes.
For us, I think it's lightning in a bottle. The stuff that we've got, and I'm surprised that we got it. You've got a much different approach. You've got an incredibly systematic, disciplined. I had a laugh the other day. Now listen, JP puts out so much stuff daily. YouTube, Instagram. I mean, and it's wonderful because it's like, it's short snippets that you can just digest and start using right away. And you said something the other day. I was laughing when you were saying it because I was guilty of it for years. You said, don't use the F word, not the F word that we're thinking about there. Don't use I'm just following up. I couldn't believe you said that.
Yeah.
So hard because I've done that myself over the years. Talk about
Oh,
that.
I probably did it today a couple times, Will. So, yeah.
What's the difference following up and following through?
Yeah. So I started one of my approaches, and one of the things I've learned through sponsorships and motorsports, a little bit different than maybe other industries, is that the space is not very transparent. And what I mean by that is there are a few people, I think, that are sharing how they do it, or the trials and tribulations of getting sponsorships and how it works. And frankly, I'm in a position that one, I like to share by nature, but I'm fairly open with the approach. And my hope is that others can learn from it. And I think part of the lack of transparency is because, we all need the sponsorship and the resources so much. We don't want to share how we did it because someone else may learn from it.
Right.
Never really had that kind of approach about any kind of business. So I wanted to give that to the racing community. So for a young driver, you hit on it very well. Regardless of how much you race, it's almost like you need to be spending a third of your time or half of your time raising sponsorship dollars or doing things that help you raise sponsorships, because I think we run into this kind of cycle of the fourth quarter of the year doing a lot of that work. But really, companies are thinking about new opportunities to grow year round. So I know it's hard because the race season is getting ready to start for many of us, or already has. And it's hard to do that during the season. Mm-hmm. But if you can find time or find an agent that will find you time to do it year round, that's what's so important, because we've got to be there when the sponsor's deciding, or when the sponsor sees a new opportunity, not when we're racing.
Sure.
That's because, that's almost, that's more thinking about the buyer more than you as much as possible.
Right. Well, and so many times, as you say, calendars are out of sync. They don't care about your calendar. They care about their calendar. We have to adjust to think about what they're looking for in their discussion processes of when do they start talking about their marketing budget? When do they start making decisions? When is it locked down? When is it locked down? And you've got to start looking toward next year.
Yeah. And let's just talk about it. I think you've got to be in the market with your prospectus and your sponsorship items for the preceding year around August. That's when they start to develop budgets. Then when they start considering things. So you at least need to be in the market there. But you're absolutely right. What their schedule is may not link up to ours. So we've got to be familiar with their decision-making cadence, and it's going to vary from industry to industry. But I think that kind of October, September, October is when they're making decisions. But if you want to get in front of someone that you're not working with at all, man, I think you've got to be ever present. And that's why that content and offering things and making yourself present year round is so absolutely important.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the reasons we're doing this program right now, the vlog and the podcast, is you. Because several people have said to me over the last couple of years, you need a bigger footprint, digital footprint, particularly for sponsors. So they've got somewhere to look to see who you are, what you think, and how you're going to function. And I'm watching you, and you're knocking his stuff down every day. I'm like, look, he's just coming out of the gym, it looks like, and he's doing something, right?
Morning, yeah.
And so I said to myself, well, you know what? I'm going to do it a little differently. We're doing the podcast and the vlog, and it's a longer, shorter, one day versus your kind of thing, which I think what you're doing is more effective. I just don't have that much to say that's helpful. But I just feel like this is why we're doing it. And a lot of that was driven from watching and listening to you all these months.
Oh, well, thank you. I think so my kind of motto, or the way I think about things, the main theme is this: and this is for the young driver. I see a lot of helmet cams, right? I see a lot of helmet cams. That's great. It's good to put up on YouTube or Insta or whatever it is. But every piece of communication should help you possibly get a sponsor, or reinforce with the existing sponsors that it's a good idea that they work for you or work with you. So when I look at drivers and teams, I see a lot of wasted opportunity for commercial that we should be really leveraging. So when you're taking the picture of the car, you're showing yourself at the track, whether it's a grassroots driver at Port City Raceway in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Man, are you showing how you showcase a sponsor? Or if you're on an interview like this as a driver or a team, clip this information and send it to your sponsors or prospective sponsors about how you would engage. Everybody has a deck, but you need to be able to show them these are the examples how I'm out there promoting my teams and drivers, upgrading your merchandise.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their t-shirts, but man, I very rarely see the sponsor's logo on there.
You're right.
I see the driver, but man, I'd love to co-brand with somebody that did really good merchandise sales.
That's so important. It's not about us. It's about them. It's about the sponsor.
It's about them 100% of the time.
Right. It has to be. I'll tell you a funny story about drivers and being aware of a situation. I know you love the Chili Bowl from Oklahoma. And last year, not this year, last year, we sponsored a car in the Chili Bowl, our Spirit of Speedway thing. Daniel Whitley was the driver. First time ever in the Chili Bowl. We love Daniel. He was racing for Abacus Racing. And he was in B Main, I think. He'd progressed. He'd done fairly well for his first time. And he went too high. He took a big chunk of the curb. Car flipped over and exploded in flames. Well, they pulled Dan, and we're watching at home. We're just praying for Daniel. He's all right. They pull him out of the car. He pops up, and what's the first thing he does? Look at this Hinchman driver suit. Not a cinch on it. It came up, and they got gloves too. And I'm in Indianapolis this past weekend, and I'm working with a group, and I'm over at Hinchman driver suit. And I said to her, I said, I said, Nancy, we sponsored. Oh, shit, you sponsored Daniel's car last year. Well, the sponsor loved the fact that the guy's getting pulled out of the burning car. And first thing he says is, look at this Hinchman driver suit. I mean, incredible intuitive thinking by Daniel to promote the sponsor like that.
That's product placement the hard way. Yeah.
For sure. Your process, I gotta believe, is second to none, and you've helped me a lot, and I'm still working on it. But you've told me a few things that were surprising to me, and I think would be surprising to drive. Like your goal for how many prospects you're looking to come out of the pipeline in a given week, and then how many of those are you wanting to have set appointments with per given week? These numbers are astronomical. I think a lot of people will be surprised. Our young drivers need to hear it. So how does that work?
I know we wanted to talk about the process a little bit. I'm going to make something real simple for folks just to get started. Like, I spend about a third of my time prospecting, which means looking for companies and contacts within those companies. Okay. And the internet is undefeated in this area, right? And getting better. The next third is the marketing and the communications, whether it's sending email about your progress or showcasing your work on social media, whatever it might be. And then a third is selling, calling, not following through, making sure that they've got the proposal and you're answering questions. So I break it down in those thirds. But in terms of the numbers, I think this is where the up and comers may need to ramp up a little bit, because I think about it this way. It takes about 10 contacts for a sponsor to say yes. That's phone calls or emails or conversations. So it's going to take 10. So you got to have bandwidth to do the 10 to get the number of sponsors that you need, right? And those are the ones that say yes. Okay. You might spend 20 on ones that don't say yes. But then I go, okay, let's work off of, let's say, 100 sponsors. Well, when I send out a marketing campaign by email or something like that, I'm going to get around 10 to 15% an open rate. So I send those through MailChimp or HubSpot or whatever you need to get a free marketing, a free email campaign program in place, and they are available to you.
Sure.
So I get 15%. And then I can see who opens those, Will, and I call those people. And so if I close, and the average salesperson is going to close around 30% of the people that he starts talking with. So if you go from 100 and then you get 15 that open, and then you start having conversation and you maybe close a third of those, we're getting down to 3 to 5. So that's a really, I got to be really good. And I've been doing this kind of business development work for 30 years, right?
Right.
So if you're new to the game, we need to have prospect lists of hundreds to get to the number that I think you might need to sustain your racing business. So it's
time consuming. You got to invest the time to get that done. I mean, it's not, there's no shortcut to that.
Yeah. And the other thing I would bring up, Will, to the up and coming racers, this, we sometimes, we're watching the race on Sunday and you're saying, well, I'm going to call that agricultural supplier company, on Monday to try to get the sponsorship for me. And what I've found is, in a lot of cases for that grassroots driver, that up and coming driver, man, it's the stuff that's closest to you. It's the business that you do business with.
Right.
It's the business that your family does business with. It's the business that if your dad works for an organization, it's maybe that company. The best way to build the base is looking close, not far away.
Right.
And that is super important. And I know what you might be thinking there. You might be going, well, man, I don't want to that's a little uncomfortable. And I don't know if they'll do it or not. And what if they say no? Well, I never negotiate against myself. I mean, I don't want to assume that they're going to say no. And you might be surprised because they support you. They love you. They've worked with you. They've done business with you. Those are the people that you should ask
That's
first.
so good. The old saying is, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Oh, 100%.
So you don't know what they're going to do. For all you know, they may be thinking that morning, oh, gee, maybe we should consider a sponsorship of some sort. And you call and be the right person at the right time.
You will never lose a deal and you will never go at the end of your career wishing that you'd called fewer people about the opportunity. And that's the other thing. We just, and I know that there'll be resistance to making those calls, but here's what I'm asking you to do. Remove yourself from this, give yourself a little margin and think, hey, I'm just here looking for a fit.
Yeah.
And if somebody wants to work with me, I've got a wonderful program and a platform, and I will bust my fanny for them. And think about it that way, not about the rejection. Thinking, I just am looking for a fit. And if you want to work with me, that's great. If not, best wishes to you. That's fine.
One of the things I like so much about what you share, we're talking with JP Murray Racing. He's representing right now Santino Ferrucci, Brady Bacon, and Taylor Reimer. She's in ARCA, Brady's in USAC, obviously Santino from Connecticut, and IndyCar. Looking for a great show. Santino's road course work has been getting a lot better last couple of years. I'm looking for a good showing on Sunday. One of the things that mistakes that I have made over the years is when I get the no, I kind of close the chapter and I never go back to them. You said something a few weeks ago to me or months ago, a paradigm change. You said you need to keep thinking of them as a client who's just not paying you yet. And I've already picked up on that and have made gone back and reconnected with people that I talked to 2 and 3 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Because here's the thing that there was a reason why they communicated with you enough to say no,
Mhm.
or to maybe say, hey, the time isn't right for us. So those are the companies that I continue to follow, continue to watch. I might see a merger or an acquisition that they make and say, wow, we could really help that new brand that they've just acquired. Things like that. And also, when you do that type of thing and you call them on something specific,
Mm.
like, hey, looks like to me you've expanded into the state of Indiana with this new brand.
Mm-hmm.
We're racing there for 18 races, and we would love to do some in-store promotions and promote you. It makes you sound different than 95% of the people that are calling them.
Wow.
So that's why I never let them go. And I'm always thinking that they're not a partner of ours yet.
And people do this, and I'm so impressed. So I try to do as often as I can. I want to know who I'm talking with. I want to do my homework. And when you're able to say something that maybe is a little inside baseball, but it's specifically to that company, maybe it's an acquisition, maybe it's a change in direction, that makes them feel like you really care about them, that you know what they're doing, you know what they're involved in, and you're speaking that language so that they know that you care. Again, I think makes you different than a lot of other folks that are making those same calls.
Yeah, that's right. We're not here to trick anybody. Right. That's short term anyway. What I'm really here, I really do want to be a fit because frankly, we've been fortunate enough with our programs that we put together that they stay with us. And I think they stay with us because we are thoughtful about how to do this. Because by the way, we're racers, right? We all know they can do it for cheaper somewhere else. Right. This isn't something that's for the faint of heart in terms of budget. So you better be thoughtful or, you're just going to be smiling and dialing. And after a while, you'll be frowning.
Yeah.
Because it won't play. It won't play.
The whole don't say follow up, say follow, follow through, not follow up. How important, JP, and I think this is important too, particularly if you're starting out, how important is fulfillment reporting? Like whether you do it quarterly. I mean, I know some folks, they don't even try to report results to the sponsors. And then they wonder why it's only a 1-year deal.
Yeah. Well, so I think this is that. Oh man, that's a great question. Well, here's what I think is important as you're developing that program with them. And I've done this to sponsors that have said no to me and they say, oh, we're happy with who we're working with now. Blah, 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 blah. And I look at who they're working with and I know, well, I feel pretty confident that we can deliver for them a little bit better. So I always like to ask, and it's not a gotcha question. It's a thoughtful one. And it is, hey, tell me what you like the best about that program and what it delivers for you. Because it's a hazard for us to assume that social media hits and likes are important to them. They may need to get just one new client. Okay, well, how do you do that now? Because heck, we might know somebody that could help them get that client, or it needs to be more about, hosting and bringing their key prospects to the racetrack and entertaining them. It may not be about social media at all. Right. So the key thing is, as you're having those conversations early on, what objectives do you want to meet by doing this? Because very few of them are going to say, oh, we just want to support the race driver.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to.
No. Well,
Right.
and again, to your point, some companies are looking for the business to business connection. They're looking for business partners. They don't care about exposure. They don't care about the logo on their car. Some people are looking for client entertainment services. And hey, listen, nobody does it better in IndyCar. It's so much different than sticking a guy in a box on third base and let him watch a ball game. This is a total immersion kind of a sport. You hear it, you feel it, you sense it, you smell it. I mean, we do the best job in the world at hospitality in IndyCar, I think. So,
we were able to raise the visibility of our brand when I was a sponsor. And I guarantee you, I've had this happen numerous times. We had a prospect that came to a sponsor's event, at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the sponsor told me, we have never been able to get a face-to-face meeting with this prospect ever before. But they showed up to Indy.
Wow.
And they, believe me, if you take them and you give them that kind of experience at the track where they can smell it, feel it, see it in their, it's an immersion, like you said.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, if they don't return your call after exposing them to that kind of opportunity, then there's something else amiss.
Yeah, they're completely not interested. I mean, that's never going to happen. What would you say? What are maybe the top 1 or 2 lessons that you've learned, maybe from making mistakes, maybe from overlooking detail? What would you say the biggest things that you learned lesson wise?
Yeah. So I'll talk about a few of the hard knocks. When you get a sponsor, make sure they pay you up front or a big chunk of it.
Yeah.
I'd like to have at least 2/3 and then a third.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
I've wasted a lot of time chasing after money that was owed us. And, that's another issue with transparency in the sport. We don't tell our horror stories, so nobody learns from them. And they don't know that for all I know, that guy could have been going all around the paddock not paying people. So I would say that is super, super important. Find the right people to partner with. And that's not only on the payment side, but people that you enjoy working with, that tell you the truth. And man, that's kind of a default answer, you would think. But I think in this sport, it's super important to find the right people to work with and that have the common values that you have. And the second thing is, I've said it over and over again, and we talked about it even here today. It never stops. There is not a season for it. It is a viable part of your business. It is as important as going fast.
Yeah, because if you don't sponsor, you're not going anywhere.
Right. So that sales process, man, and I'm willing to share and all your listeners, if they want to talk about it, I take time to kind of walk them through kind of the experiences we've had and how we do it. So I think just accepting that that's a part of the business is really important for a race driver, unless you want to pay your own way.
Do you feel more prepared and more confident now than you did 3 years ago?
Oh yeah. You know what? That leads to another thing, Will. I have some things right at my desk here. I have talking points and scripts that I still use every day when I talk.
Really? Wow.
What I found it was important for is that I would have my talking points and scripts for 2 reasons. One, it enabled me to listen better because I wasn't thinking about what I was going to say. I kind of knew what I was going to say. The second thing was I knew that it was the same objections over and over again. We don't have budget. It's not the time frame. We're working with another driver. So it's foolish to not look for the curveball when you know it's going to be coming, right? You got to practice for it. Right. So that's one thing I would also recommend is develop some good talking points and scripts for that driver or team that's reaching out to people.
People want to get more information, jpmurray.com.
Oh yeah. And or
YouTube, LinkedIn,
JP Murray Racing Studios.
Okay.
And follow me there and let's chat about it. Would love to help.
What's your do you have a favorite social media platform? I know you're spread out. I mean, I catch you most of the time on LinkedIn, but
I think this is a really good point. If you're a driver, you need to be on LinkedIn because that's where your audience is. Yeah. That's may not be where your audience is, but that's where your sponsors are. Yes, LinkedIn's my favorite platform.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, listen, I can't say how much I appreciate you coming on. It has been an absolute enjoyable half an hour, and I hope we can do it again sometime and continue doing what you're doing. You're helping so many people with your content and being open and transparent and sharing. You're helping me, and I know you're helping a lot of other folks as well. And we hope you have a great great weekend. It's something else I want. Can I take another minute, Alex? Can I just? It's our show. I'm going to go over. You said something this recently that completely stopped me in my tracks. So I go to a lot of shows and events like you do, and one of the things that's on my calendar every year is PRI. And this year, my flights are booked. I'm going, and my wife and my son get sick at the same time. And I'm like, you know what? I can't leave them alone. So I canceled the trip. Monday or Tuesday after that on LinkedIn, you're giving one of your show, and you go, I think you have to evaluate how you use your time. I recently went to PRI, and but is that really, you got to look at it. Is that really the best use of your time going to PRI as opposed to what other stuff and I'm like, are you kidding me? I was just thinking about that. That was so powerful.
It is worth your time if you have great intention about who you're going to see, what you're going to talk about, and when you do it. If you're just going to go around and walk around and hand out business cards, I don't think it is. Yeah. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be for me.
For me, right? Yeah, I agree. It was just the timing of it was so funny because I had just missed it, and then you talked about it like 2 days later. So anyway, J.P. Murray, thank you so much. I really appreciate you in so many different ways. And have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Will. It's a pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
J.P. Murray, everybody. Hey, that's it. That's a wrap. That's the show. Thank you so much. Don't forget, Amazon.com, Spirit of Speedway. It's a great children's book. Your kids will love it, and they'll love IndyCar. And again, thanks to our sponsor, Speed Sport and Redline Ace Graphics. Alex, thank you so much. Good job today. And we'll hopefully, this will come out in podcast so you can listen to it. You can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it on TikTok. You can watch it on Facebook. And St. Pete, noontime Sunday on Fox. It's going to be a great race. See you guys next week.